After Hours.
On this episode of the History of the Course After Hours podcast, we discuss the band from the city of brotherly love known as A Life Once Lost. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurvivedByPro for news and latest episode postings. Make sure to subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star review, and write us a comment on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're using. Make sure to check us out on TikTok and give us a follow at IsSurvivedByProductions. And if you'd like to see us do some live streams, leave us a comment or tweet us the keyword stream. Now, without further ado, let's start the show.
The devil is in Atlanta, army surrounded.
Welcome back to the History of the Course After Hours podcast, where each and every episode I, Curtis, sit down with my good friend and avid listener to the History of the Course podcast. Some might call the Pop podcasts of this podcast right here. My good friend, Erik. How's it going, Erik?
It's a going. The red buds are a budding.
They're budding.
I'm dying of allergies. It's great.
Nice. Nice.
Spring.
I'm getting
Spring
over
has
it.
sprung.
Yeah, mine was a couple of weeks ago. That was just like, kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm getting used to it. Now,
It'd be that way.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's like, we talked about it before, and it went down a dark rabbit hole, but I'll save that for some other time. But we talked about before, you get to wintertime, you're like, God, it's so cold, I'm ready for summertime. And then you get to summertime, it's like, God, it's so hot, I'm ready for some wintertime. We just,
And
we
then
can't-
everything
we
in
can't.
between kills you with allergies.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. You're like, this is the
There's no
best
winning
times.
at all.
Fall and spring, the best times. No, allergies murders you.
But then I can't breathe, so it's fantastic.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of allergies and not being able to breathe, let's talk about a little band known as A Life Once Lost. What the connection there is, I don't know. I just thought I'm going to segue. Segue. Yeah, let's talk about a band known as A Life Once Lost, otherwise known as a lol. Have you noticed that one? A lol. Yes. All right, Erik, as always, I'd like to ask you, how were you introduced to A Life Once Lost?
Probably ye old History of the Course podcast, pop.
Nice.
Very likely anyway. It sounds familiar as a name, but just not enough to be sure.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
I've been around a good minute, so I've probably heard the name, just probably not ever given it a chance.
When in doubt, listen to the History of the Course podcast to get your information, the new bands.
Hey, it doesn't hurt.
We'll provide. We're here to provide for you, buddy. All right, so now you've listened to them, their whole discography. How would you, Erik, describe A Life Once Lost to a brand new listener?
Basically, the heavy end of metalcore. At
Okay.
times, I do feel that southern twist closer to the end of their discography, especially. I think you and Josh talked about it, and I've heard some other folks talk about. They describe it a little bit as groove metal, especially that last album. I can feel that. So
Yep.
that's
It
pretty much
makes me think, especially with that, like the album artwork and everything, very kind of psychedelic, but they don't really go like psychedelic rock to me, and I think that they go with more of that groove rock kind of feel. But yeah,
all right.
I was really worried listening to, because like when we did the original podcast or the original episode, I had only listened up through Hunter. And so I didn't know anything about Iron Gag or whatever the last one's called. I forget what the last one's called now. But
Stuff and things.
looking at the artwork, because that's usually what I do first. Is like, look at the artwork. Okay, what am I getting off of this? Kind of like almost like a psychiatric test. It's like, what does this blob look like to you? Describe your feelings. Anyway, so I'm looking at that, and like with like Iron Gag, and I'm like, okay, that's like interesting artwork. Like that's like different from what we've been doing. makes me feel kind of
And
like more
even the name of it's kind
mainstream.
of
Yeah, and it's kind of like, but then yeah, looking at their last album, it's kind of got like that gypsy woman on it. It's kind of a almost kind of abstract artwork a little bit. It's just like, all right, I feel very like psychedelic, maybe kind of space rock kind of vibes going on here. Yeah. And I mean, weirdly enough, we didn't really go that way. It was like you said, it was more groove metal than anything, but carry on, sir.
which groove metal's all right. I got to be in
Yeah.
the mood, but it's all
Right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So, but for a new listener, that's kind of how I'd describe them.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right, Eric, I've got one trivia question for you in this episode.
Oh
Are you ready
boy,
for this?
let's go 0 for 100.
Okay. It's all or nothing. Okay, here's the question for you, Eric. What three bands? I need three answers here. Three bands,
Mm.
two of which you and I and me and Josh have covered in episodes. Um, so
Narrows it
two
down
of the three,
slightly.
yeah. So two of the three we've covered already. But of those three bands, um, or what three bands did Josh see in 2005 that played with A Life Once Lost? Now he's talked about this story several times before, so I need three bands.
Hmm. Handshake Murders was one of them, wasn't it?
Okay, that's one of them.
Does a life lost once lost count?
It does not.
Oh,
They're the exception.
I know he's told this story 100 times,
Yeah.
or at least three. Same, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Let's see.
He's told
Was
this story, I
it
think, four times because I think he tells it from like each band's perspective, like when they got up
right?
there and played, or whatever. But
Was it Cancer Bats?
no, it was not.
Oh,
No, no,
how
no,
about
no.
Norma Jean? Not that one either,
Okay,
right?
so you got Norma Jean.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
Norma Jean. Okay,
you got
okay.
Norma Jean.
Ah,
So you got two of the three here. I'll give you one more shot.
2 out of
So
3.
you had Norma Jean. You're missing. So you got Norma Jean and another band. They were kind of like I think they were co-headliners, and then Handshake Murders and Life Once
Oh,
Lost were
was it the
the
Chariot?
openers. You got it, man. You
Okay,
got it.
okay.
Yep.
I got my
Yep.
stories
Yep.
all
Yep.
mixed
Yep.
up together there.
No, you're
So
good. You're good. We're talking Redeemer, Norma Jean. We're talking about Fiance, Chariot. This would be Hunter album for A Life Once Lost and Handshake Murderers. I think I'm trying to remember when Usurper came out. I mean, I'm sure they played that there because that was really their only
music
full
from
length
a
that they
server
had.
anyway,
So
right?
exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, even if it was a
So
deal where we're like, oh, we haven't put this out yet, but this is all the music we have, so we're gonna play it. So not bad, not bad. All right,
I'll give
so
myself 80%.
I'll give you 100% on that one. That's fine. That's all good. A little leeway. Can you tell
Yeah.
me you did mention Cancer Bats? Can you tell me what other bands we saw Cancer Bats with?
Let's see. That's the one was that Silverstein?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So Silverstein, and that's the one where you walked away before the headliner, which would have been
Yes.
Rise Against.
Yep. And then we also saw a Comeback Kid too that night.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a
Yeah.
good
Just
one.
the
That was
Rise Against thing always makes me laugh. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was like, all right, we're heading out. And I was like, there's one more band. He's like, nope, we're done. There's one more band.
but band,
Oh
mosh
man.
pit.
That was my first, yeah, and that was my first like concert. So I was like, I don't understand what's happening. We paid a full ticket. I paid the full price, right? So I should be seeing every band here. Nope, we're out. We're done. Okay. It was my ride, and it is downtown in a shady area. So I was like, all right,
Right. Yep.
I better get out of here. All
I'm
right,
not
so
walking home from that one.
I ain't walking home from that one. All right, so Josh told us about the first time he heard slash saw A Life Once Lost, as we talked about in the previous question there. And he described the vocalist Robert Meadows as a mysterious, homeless-looking man during the first band's set, only to realize this man would blow his ever-loving mind with his live performance. So, Eric, I put the question to you. Do you have any strange concert encounter stories, kind of along the lines of that, maybe?
I'll give you two quick ones.
Okay.
Um,
Story time.
I saw Dayseeker. Yes, story time with Eric. Uh, so when I saw Dayseeker in Oklahoma City, I think it was the Diamond Ballroom. They got techs or roadies, whatever you want to call them, and they come out and they swap all the stuff out. Here's the drums swapping. Here's the guitar swapping. They got the whole set swapping out. And these guys wear all black, so black pants, black shirt, t-shirts, jackets, kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Seems to be pretty lax. Just wear all black, so you kind of blend in. So after this would have been the third band, so the third reset, we're getting moving, and the guy comes up and he starts sound checking the mic. I was like, okay, cool. One of the techs is mic checking for him, whatever. And he's wearing all black, and then the lights come on, and he starts absolutely wailing into the mic, and I'm like, oh,
Oh,
he's the lead singer. Oh, okay. I thought he was a roadie. Cool. All right. Because I never looked at pictures before. I was there for Silverstein.
right.
I was not expecting, and that's kind of one of those that kind of blew my mind too. Like even the drummer in the background, they'll use, like a lot of bands will use MacBook Pro Air or whatever backing tracks for stuff. This
Right.
drummer was like riding his elbow into I think it was the tom, and to make some of that kind of
Whoa.
background noise in
Yeah.
between the
Okay.
song. I was like, dude's put on a show. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah, I totally thought that the lead singer was some Brody
He
that
got
just
you, man.
pulled the
You're
mic.
right. Who put that roadie
And
up
then,
there? Come on, take him away.
the second one is I was down in Tulsa at the Vanguard, and I saw an old friend from high school, and he was running around. I thought, hey, maybe he got a job here at the Vanguard. And so first band gets up, and he runs up the side of the stage. I'm like, oh man, he's about to get himself fired if he keeps this crap up. And he took the mic, and then he just absolutely starts, deathcore screams into this mic. I'm like, oh, I mean, he's always been into music, but I was like, I didn't know he could do that.
Right.
That is pretty impressive. So it turns out he is the lead singer of a band called Pariah System. Had no idea. So
It was weird too, because like I knew him too from growing up, and like you text
right.
me that night, and you're like, you know this band, da, da, da. You remember so and so? Yeah, he's in this band. Like what?
And then you
So
go look
yeah,
up
I was
those
kind of the
screams.
same
It's
thing.
like
Yeah, it's like
that's him.
wow.
Like
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, that was crazy,
So,
man.
but yeah,
Nice.
if you want to hear some wild screams, honestly, he's pretty good. I don't know if he's had training or if he just figured it out, because some people just do figure it out. But
He YouTubed
Pariah
it.
System, it's actually on
Yeah.
Spotify. He got it up there. He
Nice.
was telling me so.
Spotify worthy.
Anyway,
Nice. Very nice, man. Cool.
and Apple Music, he told me all those stuff. But yeah, pretty cool to.
We're
Like I said, I just
everywhere.
thought he was working there at the Vanguard, and
Right.
suddenly he jumps up there and just starts wailing into that mic. I was like, wow, like
He took it. He took a chance.
nice,
That's what
very
it
nice.
was. This is my
I
shot.
was
Nobody's
definitely
occupying the
very
microphone.
impressed.
Yeah. Nice.
Today's
All
the
right.
day.
Right. Exactly. All right. So, not including their first album, "Open Your Eyes for the Open Your Mouth." Excuse me. Open your mouth for the speechless. In case of those appointed to die. Do you hear the Lamb of God influence that me and Josh talked about in their discography? And then are there any other influences that come to mind when you listen to A Life Once Lost?
So I could definitely hear the. I'm not like the biggest fan.
Mhm.
Like I've heard a little bit from him. I've got a
Right.
friend who's wholeheartedly. I don't think he ever takes their shirt off. Like he is always. That's the champion of the band. Like he
What am
loves
I going?
himself.
Right.
But
What am I going to listen to today? Oh, more Lamb of God. Okay.
well, it is what it is. Here, put it on.
Yeah. Yep.
Spin that record. But anyway, I kind of know a little bit from him. I can feel that influence. I went and listened to good chunks of it to feel the comparison. I
Right.
can see it for sure. The later guitar work, I think Josh mentioned this in the original, very Maylene and Sons
Hmm.
Disaster, that is. It gives me some common points there. I mean, it's not 100%, note for note or anything like that, but I think Josh described it as like a, Maylene 5. Like,
Yeah,
here we are, looking for Maylene 5, and maybe it's this. It's the Maylene
right.
5 we found along the way.
It was right under our nose the whole time.
Who knew?
Hmm. Okay.
But
Yeah,
it is almost like a B-side for a Maylene album.
right. Okay.
That's Iron
Nice.
Gag anyway. Iron Gag, that's the one I
Right.
was thinking of.
Okay. Cool. 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 Okay, so speaking of that first album, Open Your Mouth for the Speechless in Case of Those Appointed to Die, it's obviously an album where, the group was looking for their sound. It's filled with layered, unclean vocals that really kind of tread the line of demonic at times. You've got some like Dillinger Escape Plan, like time signature changes, and then I mentioned this to Josh, and I'm wondering he really didn't know it at the beginning there, but I think he kind of got it after a while. But at times listening to like the bass on that album, it made me think of like Les Claypool from Primus, kind of doing. I couldn't really figure out like a good word to say, so I'm gonna say like kind of popping, kind of. It's not really slapping though, because I don't want to say slapping, but
Like
kind of a
a real heavy
popping.
pick.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's weird. It makes me think like he's popping the strings though back onto the frets almost. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Um, but it made me think of that. Of course, then I started thinking about old school Tony Hawk Pro Skater, from when Primus was on there and so on and so forth. But anyway, all that in a nutshell. How do you think they did on their debut album?
Let's see. For a debut album, I think it's pretty okay.
Okay.
The This one's probably not going to make the rotation, every week for me for,
Right.
maybe
Right.
once in a great while I might, spin this one, but I do feel the growth throughout their discography, and this is a really good place to start for a debut album, as opposed to some, this is a little more cleaned up, a little more, in tune, a little more,
Right.
You can feel like everybody knows their instrument.
Right.
Where some of these early albums we've talked about, it's like, yeah, we picked up the guitar 3 weeks ago and we kind of learned power chords, and yeah, it's a
And we
little on
just
the
went
rough
with it.
side.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So this is definitely a little more, I know my music, I know my craft, and here's our, introduction to the scene. And it feels
Right.
pretty good as a whole. It's a great place to start as far as a band, growing from A, B to C. So
Right. How about those vocals though, man? That layered, unclean sound.
he does have some pretty cool vocals, very unique.
Yeah. I mean, it really does kind of tread the line of like, oh Lord, what am I listening to a CD backwards and they're like giving me a demonic message or something? It's very interesting,
Well,
like the
hard to
combo of
understand at times. Yeah.
right. It's the combo I think of just like his style and then layering it up. Just like, oh gosh, this is nice.
What is that?
Oh, this is wonderful. And then how about that? How about that mouthful of an album title? Open your mouth for the speechless. In case of those appointed to die. It's like what? That's pretty
It's
cool,
pretty
though,
cool,
man.
but I'm going to forget most of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, okay.
Mouth, speechless, die. Okay,
Speechless. Well,
that's
I
what I
mean, I
got.
already wanted to screw it up. Open your eyes for the speechless, man. Oh
Okay,
man. Oh.
what
Alrighty,
next?
so here, right. So we just kind of talked about the vocal style already, but let's dive a little deeper into it. So, Robert Meadows, the vocalist of Life Once Lost, blah 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 blah. His vocal style is definitely an interesting one. He's definitely set himself aside, not really taking into account of Lamb of God and the influence there and everything like that. So I'm gonna tell you, listening to Hunter or listening to Vulture when the guy from Lamb of God comes in, it's like, oh, that's a different guy now because man, I could have swore that was the same guy.
I didn't
They
even
got that.
notice.
Yeah, it was weird. It took me a while to realize, like, oh, there's a guest vocal spot, really? Okay. Hmm. But anyway, he's gotten very interesting vocal style. Described by Josh as bitey with lots of saliva and gritty, kind of southern, grit, I think, with a great cadence. Me and Josh talked about that cadence that he has with his lyrics, putting it to music. He's got a very good knack of figuring out a good cadence. Um, a reviewer described his vocal style as a horsey bark, and as a subhuman cries of a large gorilla. While another reviewer described it as, quote, hard to tell sometimes if he's screaming to the heavens or screaming into a mirror at himself. And I kind of take that more as kind of like an emotional thing, right? Finally, I posed the question to Josh on whether at times he was doing some sort of kind of like inhale screaming, especially like early in their discography.
Right.
It's just really weird. I don't think he is, and Josh kind of convinced me of that. But man, it just the way he's doing it really kind of sounds like every once in a while he's like, But you've heard our thoughts, me and Josh. You've heard the reviewers. Now, Eric, it's time for you on the After Hours podcast to give us your opinion, diagnosis, whatever you want to say, on Robert Meadows' vocal style. The floor is yours.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I like floors. So I'd say, as far as the cadence go, it kind of, in a roundabout way, made me think of He Is Legend. The way
Yes. Yeah.
Tyler Krumer, the way he finds these ways to include his voice into stuff where it otherwise really doesn't feel like it should belong, but somehow it
Right.
does in a fantastic way, and I don't understand
Very
it.
creative. Yeah. Very creative.
And like I said, it's not a one-for-one comparison, but both guys find that bounciness and that cadence that goes along with the music. And that's not always an easy thing to do in your heavier metals and whatnot.
No.
So
Yeah. Well,
when
especially when
when
you're
following
trying to
a
scream and
guitar or a
everything.
piano,
Yeah.
right. You're following that guitar or piano. It's like la 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 la. You're following it, note for
Right.
note. When they're doing something, you're over here doing something else. Drums is back there doing who knows what, and I mean, it's a wild time. And
Right.
some guys can really, really bring it together, and this is that needle and thread that brings it together. So anyway, but I do like his vocals. They're pretty good, fairly unique. One band we mentioned notwithstanding.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he does pretty well stay kind of in the mid range as far as screams and whatnot. He does touch on the higher sides. But I really think that's where he excels, is in those mid to highs. The
Yes.
whole
Yeah.
metal scene seems to be heading lower and lower and gruntier and sludgier. And it's like,
Ugh.
and then now they're trying, forget about the inhuman cries of a large gorilla. Now we're going something much lower than that. We're going to, the backside of a rhinoceros, I don't even know. Like, it just gets to get lower and lower. And then don't forget the big
growling
squeals are
fart
coming
from a
back. And,
rhinoceros. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
anyway, I really do like his vocals. They're, like I said, they're good in that mid range. They really are pretty amazing, actually, in my opinion. I really like them. So
Have you heard anything weirder than somebody describing vocals as subhuman cries of a large gorilla? That one just gets me every time, man.
no, that one's good.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to describe it, though. It's like, yeah,
It's not a
what are
bad
we
way at
talking
all.
about? We talking about silverback, or what are we talking here?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
He's an alpha all the way.
exactly. He's an alpha man. Yeah, I think Robert Meadows is an alpha for sure. He comes off as a guy. I mean, forget about just hearing him scream. He comes off as a guy of like, I don't think I want to mess with this dude. He probably beat the crap out of me. But
Right.
personally, Eric, their sophomore album, A Great Artist, is my favorite. Josh's favorite from A Lull is Hunter. Can't blame him. It's a good one too. Honestly, there's really not a bad album in their discography. Yeah, Hunter. Yeah, it's their most known album for sure. With its quote rubber bandy riffs pulling you back and forth. How do you feel, Eric, about their 2005 album Hunter?
I do like it. It seems to be the most popular, like you said, amongst fans, especially on Spotify from the numbers I was looking at.
Right.
Um, Definitely clear progression, point A to point B to point C here as far as they are growing.
Right.
And I like the way they're growing too. I mean, you got was it like Vulture and things like that on this album? Just yeah, it pops.
We talked about kind of like the southern feel, especially in like the later part of their discography. Do you feel like this is where you
Right.
start to hear that?
In little bits and pieces, yeah. It's not as absolutely blatant as it is, say, an
Right.
Iron Gag,
Right.
but it's definitely you can feel the undertones to it, I think.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So
And man, looking at that album artwork too is like, oh, this is some dark stuff, man.
that's pretty wild.
Like
I do enjoy
nightmare
that.
core. Ooh. All right. Hey, nightmare core. That's a new one for you. It's a
Oh,
new
there you go.
genre. Music to fuel your nightmare. Okay, this is kind of interesting one. So you got Anthony Green, vocalist for Seosin and Circus Survive, and he's doing a guest vocal spot on a Life Once Lost song. Now, the song was All Teeth from Iron Gag. Song's good. I like it. They made it work. They did a good job of it. But when I'm looking at it just like on paper, I remember the first time seeing it, it's like Anthony Green with a life once lost. These two things don't mix. I don't see it. And I guess maybe I'm thinking more of like his Circus Survive days. So basically like Circus
Right.
Survive, like do like a split of like Circus Survive and a life once lost is like that doesn't work. That's there's two different. Um, but
But then it
on
does.
paper, but it does, yeah. But again, on paper, don't even think about, how the music ended up turning out or anything, or the guest spot or whatever. But what's the strangest looking collaboration that you've seen on paper?
As far as like this general genre goes,
Mm.
metalcore-ish, I would say strangest sounding to me would be like the Chariot with Haley Williams, or
Hmm.
maybe Lights with Bring Me the Horizon. That
Oh
would have
yeah,
been like
yeah.
their was that Sempiternal days?
Right.
I
Yeah, I
forget
think
even
you're
what album
right.
that
I
song's
think
on.
you're right.
It'd be probably Sempiternal or older,
Yeah.
and that's when they were still kind of heavy compared to
Right.
their radio rock that they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Arena
we'll get to that later, I'm
core.
sure.
Oh, it's
But
coming. That British invasion is
uh,
coming.
oh boy. But in general, some of the strangest ones I've heard come from Willie Nelson. To be honest,
Oh,
I mean, he's like I guess you'd call him outlaw country. I think is what he kind of
right.
goes by.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's done stuff with Lionel Richie. He's done stuff with Ray Charles.
Oh
He's
my.
done stuff with new. I can't remember her name. Some new
Newer
pop
artist,
artist
whatever.
girl,
Ice Spice?
and apparently Snoop Dogg is on the
Oh yeah.
list.
Oh yeah. They buddies, man. They buddies.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they just light it up together. But
Oh yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Martha Stewart was there too. So
uh, yeah, But I mean, Willie Nelson's got. He's been in the industry so long. He's got some
oh,
really strange collaborations just
for
across the
sure.
board.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Like some of the oddest sounding ones, like Lionel Richie,
Right.
Snoop Dogg.
Good.
Like what? That doesn't work on paper.
That does
So
not
anyway,
work on paper, man. Oh boy. One that always comes to my mind is, and I didn't like it when I listened to it. Of course, I didn't even know who this person was, but it's on a beautiful place to drown for Silverstein. It was like, I think her name was Princess Nokia or something like that. I think
oh
she's
my,
like a hip hop rap or pop star or something like that. Maybe up in Canada, but it's like, yeah, I was like, oh, geez. Like, I remember just like looking at it on paper. I was like, yeah, this is not going to be good. And then I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, this is not good. To me, this is not good.
right.
But anyway,
I thought Lights did okay with them, but
yeah, Lights did okay. Yeah, and they made
that's
it
one of those
work
that
though on that.
yeah. That's one
I
of
mean,
those I
there's
actually did go look up Lights after that, and I wouldn't
right.
recommend it for anybody who likes actual like rock and roll or metal. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
yeah, she's got
yeah,
some
on
good
that
collabs though.
on that album, um, Shipwreck in the Sand, there wasn't a bad. My personal opinion, there wasn't a bad feature on
They
there.
had some good
You know,
collabs on that one.
right? Yeah. So,
Really good ones.
all right, Eric, we're at the end of our episode here. You know how I always like to finish this off. I like to hear what some of your favorite albums, songs, lyrics, riffs, artwork, maybe, from
No.
A Life Once Lost. So once again, Eric, the floor, which you love, is yours.
Yay. Artwork, I'd probably have to say Hunter off the top
Yeah,
of my head. Like you said, that's kind of nightmare fuel. It's
that's
that
some nightmare
crazy
fuel,
dog
bro.
with like so many eyes across the side of its head or something.
Yes.
Like that's so cool. If that thing is
Oh
either
man.
hunting me or I'm hunting it, no wonder
Right.
that album's so epic. Like, yes.
Who is
As
the
far as a
hunter?
favorite, who is the hunter? Am I hunted or the hunter? I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly. Ooh. Hmm.
So, as far as album that I like to listen to, though, Iron Gag seems to be what I keep going back to and back to again.
Okay.
And we've talked about it a lot before, and we'll talk about it again. I'm a big fan of Maylene. They
Right.
got that southern sounds to them. They got that kind of twangy thing going on. I enjoy it. So
I had
I think
trouble
that's
in the
why I keep going
original.
back to that.
Right. I had trouble in the original episode saying the first track on the album, and I'm still having trouble like saying it great. It's Fire Water Joyride, right?
Yep.
But I keep wanting, for
Yep.
some reason in my mind, I keep wanting to say Fireside Water Joyride. Like what?
Just a little fireside chat.
Yeah, I guess. I guess I just have Fireside Chat in my brain. I don't know. Anyway, carry on, sir.
So lyric wise, you'll probably guess right where this one comes from.
Vulture.
I can promise you one thing: I will hunt you until you die.
I'm not
That
familiar
is
with that song.
pretty epic the way that comes in and just
Oh,
kind of comes
well,
in,
I'm
does it
about
a
saying
couple
the way he
times. And,
delivers
oh,
it. Yeah.
right. I mean, just reading it out doesn't do anything for anybody, but
Well,
I will
and
hunt you until you die.
yes, and that
He
goes
hits it
back
so hard.
to the cadence thing because me and Josh talked about that. It's like reading just the lyrics, it doesn't have that same kind of pop to it. You mean you
Right. He's
have
got
to
some
do
punch behind it.
yeah, he's got some punch, but you have to have the music and everything going and get that cadence going with it. You can't just be like, yeah, I will hunt you till you die. Okay, do it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
But let's see. This one. Oh, there it is. This one comes from the Wanderer. It says, "First in line to cash in on what I created. Last in line to beat the dead horse." And
Nice.
again, I kind of like that probably because it reminds me of Maylene.
Right.
Start out that song first in line, and then it goes off to that rather than, well, this is not how
Right.
that song starts. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah. No,
As
I
far
get
as
what you're
Maylene
saying
goes.
though. Right. Nice.
Whiskey bottles and turpentine, written out a eulogy
Right.
for anyone to cross my path. Oh, this is not a Maylene episode. My bad.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Let's see. Songs. So I'm still pretty new to this band. So what I did is I kind of picked one from the last 3 albums.
Okay.
And because that's kind of where I lean as far as,
Yeah.
when I go to play something, it's going to be Hunter, Iron Gag, or Psychedelic Crazy Looking Lady. I can't remember the name of the album.
Psychedelic Lady.
But so we'll go with number 3.
Number 3.
Something Awful.
Ah, yes. Ah, yes.
So the
Something
riff
awful.
over that whole song, and I think it kind of carries on into the next song actually as well.
I think you're
And
right.
it just kind of perpetuates and it kind of keeps moving with the everything. And just that underlying feeling and almost like what's going to happen with this riff, like what's
Right.
going on? Is it dread? What's building? And it has a freaking solo, like
Mhm.
metalcore with a solo. You don't get that anywhere else, or very few anyway. It's very
Right.
few and far between, unfortunately.
Well, the one thing that I like that they do on
So
it's Ecstatic Trance, by the way. That's the album name.
Ecstatic Trance.
But the one thing I really enjoyed that they did on that was they incorporate solos, but it's like they still do vocals over the top of it. So it's like you still got like a lot going on. They're not going to take a lot of time where it's like, all right, now it's solo part. Now back to the vocalist. It's like, now we're going to go all over the place. Everybody's going to be doing something at the same time.
It's like taking a breakdown and giving it some, giving a little bit extra.
Right. Yeah.
Because I
Put
can
some
just
salt and
imagine
pepper on
back
it.
in, oh yeah, yeah. Like back in the day when this hit, I could only imagine being in that pit. Like those
Oh,
dudes would go ballistic.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great song. I like to go to that one. So number 2 though
Number 2.
is Firewater Joyride.
Oh, I
We
think you
talked a
meant
little bit about it
Fireside.
already. Fireside Joy Tide. I don't know,
Joytide. Joytide.
but very Maylene-ish.
Mhm.
And again, I'm kind of a Maylene fan, so
Just a little
I'll
bit.
just leave it at that. And number 1
Number 1.
is Vulture. I go back to this, and it comes on, when I'm searching for new music now. It's never a skip. This is a fantastic song.
Yeah.
So from, the way he delivers those lyrics to the overall sounds, the hype that's behind the song, it's just pretty good stuff. I enjoy it. So
Nice. Very nice, man. Very nice. So I take it you enjoyed your time listening to Life Once Lost.
I did. The notes were actually more difficult because I was actually really enjoying them.
Good.
And they've got like 5 albums, and I'm sitting here going, they're all pretty good.
They're all so good. Nice. Cool.
Because usually I'll split my time for certain albums certain ways, but these are all pretty good, and I'm still very new to them. So
Right.
I enjoyed it. They're worth a shot if you're out there listening, watching.
We did our
Whatever else
job,
you want.
Josh. We did our job. We made another fan, another monthly listener for the Spotify stats. Oh,
All
boy.
6,700
Yeah,
of us.
exactly. All right, Eric, any final thoughts on the band known as A Life Once Lost?
Not a whole lot. Just they are worth a shot. If you're new to them, or you want something metalcore-ish but kind of melodic, good pick for you.
With some gnarly vocals, some gritty,
Very
subhuman
gnarly.
crying gorilla vocals.
Screaming at the mirror at himself.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes.
All
Good
righty.
stuff.
Let's get on out of here, Eric, for this episode. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at @IsSurviveByPro for news in the latest episode postings, not just on this show, but our other shows as well. We have the History of the Cores podcast, the Pop podcast, where I sit down with Josh and we talk about the history of bands from the core genre. We also have the Red Right Hand podcast, which has covered all 6 seasons and a few history lessons in between of the Peaky Blinders. And we also have the Throne of the Dragon podcast, which so far has covered season 1, soon to be season 2. We're about to put another month in the books. We're about down to about 2 months until the debut of season 2. We're getting hyped. So hyped. But yeah, HBO's House of the Dragon. So go check those out. Also, while you're on Twitter, make sure to follow my co-host at Joshua Lynn Gary. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on whatever podcast service you're using. And if you want to listen to us and see our smiling faces, head on over to our YouTube page. Just search Is Survive By Productions, and then I'll have every episode from all of our shows. Subscribe to the channel, thumbs up the video. All right, until the next episode where we talk about the band known as the Handshake Murders. Dun dun dun. We'll see you.